The shadow of Blackwood Forest. In the remote village of Blackwood, nestled deep within a sprawling forest, an unsettling legend had woven its way into the fabric of local lore. The villagers spoke in hushed tones of the Whisperer, a ghostly presence said to haunt the woods, preying on anyone foolish enough to venture out after sundown. Generations of whispered warnings and chilling stories had forged an unshakable fear in the hearts of those who called Blackwood home. Most dismissed the tales as mere superstition, but some, those who had heard the whispers themselves, knew better. One chill autumn evening, Emma arrived in Blackwood. She was a journalist, hardened by years of uncovering truths behind urban legends and ghost stories. This assignment, however, felt different. The villagers' fear wasn't exaggerated bravado or performative theatrics for tourists. It was raw, palpable, and unsettlingly sincere. Emma had been sent by the Occult Chronicle, a magazine catering to supernatural enthusiasts. Determined to uncover the truth behind the Whisperer, she brushed aside the locals' pleas to abandon her investigation. The innkeeper, an elderly man named Samuel, offered Emma a room and a dire warning. "Miss," he rasped, leaning heavily on the counter, "you seem like a sensible young lady. Leave Blackwood. The Whisperer isn't just a story. People vanish in those woods. Their voices come back, but their bodies never do." Emma smiled politely but remained undeterred. "Thank you for your concern, but I'm here to work. I'll be careful." That night, Emma lay awake in her modest room at the inn, listening to the eerie silence outside. Blackwood seemed unnaturally quiet, as though the forest itself were holding its breath. Her resolve wavered only slightly. Armed with a flashlight, a tape recorder, and her trusted notebook, Emma ventured out the following evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon. The forest swallowed her almost immediately. The dense canopy blocked what little moonlight there was, and the air seemed heavier with every step. Emma followed the dirt path leading into the heart of the woods, recording her observations. "I'm standing in Blackwood Forest," she spoke into the recorder. Her voice was steady, though the atmosphere sent chills down her spine. "The locals believe this place is cursed, haunted by a being known as the Whisperer. So far, it's just a typical forest, albeit an unsettling one." Hours passed. The deeper Emma walked, the darker and quieter the forest became. Then came the whispers. At first, she thought it was the wind, a faint rustling of leaves overhead. But as she pressed on, the sound grew clearer. It wasn't the wind, it was voices. They were soft, barely audible, and seemed to come from all directions. "Emma?" She froze, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Her name echoed through the trees, carried on a voice she didn't recognize but felt oddly familiar. "Is someone there?" she called, her voice breaking. The whispers didn't stop. If anything, they grew louder, more insistent. Emma's pulse quickened as she scanned her surroundings. Shadows twisted and danced beyond the beam of her flashlight. The voices began overlapping, forming an incomprehensible chorus of pleas, warnings, and accusations. "You shouldn't have come. Turn back. Join us." Emma's rational mind fought to dismiss it as a trick of the wind, but deep down, she knew better. These were voices, human voices, each distinct, each filled with anguish. She pressed forward, desperate to find the source. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but her journalistic curiosity burned brighter. As she moved deeper into the forest, the whispers grew deafening, their words now clear and sharp. "They all come. They never leave. Emma, we're waiting." Her flashlight flickered. The battery shouldn't have been low. She had checked it before leaving. She smacked the device against her palm, but it sputtered out, plunging her into darkness. Panic clawed at her chest. She fumbled for her phone, only to find it was dead, despite being fully charged earlier. Her breathing quickened as the whispers closed in, circling her like a predator stalking its prey. Then she saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows, indistinct and shrouded in darkness. Its form seemed to shift and writhe, as though it were made of the forest itself. Pale eyes, glowing faintly, fixed on her, and the whispers ceased abruptly. The silence was even more terrifying. Emma tried to scream, but no sound came. The figure raised a hand, or what resembled one, and the air around her grew impossibly cold. "You shouldn't have come," it said, though its lips didn't move. The voice echoed in her mind, chilling and hollow. Emma turned and ran, branches tearing at her clothes and face. The forest seemed to shift around her, the path she had followed now gone. Every step felt heavier, as though the earth itself sought to trap her. The whispers returned, louder and angrier, filling her head with an unbearable cacophony. When she finally stumbled out of the woods, dawn was breaking. She collapsed at the edge of the village, shaking and incoherent. The villagers found her and brought her back to the inn. Days passed before Emma could speak of what she had seen. Even then, she couldn't explain it. Her recordings were garbled, her notes smeared with dirt and illegible. The villagers didn't press her for details. They simply nodded, their expressions grim. Emma left Blackwood that week, vowing never to return. She published an article about her experience, but it was vague, lacking the vivid details she usually prided herself on. Back in the city, Emma tried to move on, but the whispers followed her. At night, she would wake to her name being called, soft and distant, as though carried on the wind. She stopped sleeping, stopped working. Her friends grew concerned, but no one could help her. One evening, months later, Emma vanished. Her apartment was found undisturbed, her belongings untouched. All that remained was her tape recorder, still running, capturing a faint, familiar whisper. "They all come. They never leave.